It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome in to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. It is hump day. It is Wednesday. Alan, how are we feeling?
I've been in a really good mood for like 3 days now. I'm starting to get concerned.
Yeah. Too much. The sky's been too blue for you over there?
Well, I mean, things have been going well. Like, here's the real conundrum, Smitty, is that I make most of my bones on this website by like telling people that are freaking out and overreacting that they're freaking out and overreacting. And the problem is Steelers are really good, and everyone's like, hey, the Steelers are really good. And I'm like, yes, the Steelers are really good. I got nothing. Everyone's right. The Steelers are really good.
So the skies for you
really good, and it's accurate this time.
The skies for you aren't as blue when everybody else's also are.
I just think people are adequately and properly discussing this team as they should have been all along, like a above average to good football team. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. Also, things are going really smoothly at the website. Aaron Becker has been a freaking godsend. I'm a happy guy. The weather's nice. I got nothing to complain about.
I like that.
Most of my best moments here on the YouTube channel are when I'm complaining about something. Like, I'm less interested when I'm happy. I fully understand that.
I'll be honest, there's some things going on in my life that I could complain about, but I woke up this morning and have the opportunity to be sitting here doing this podcast with you right now. That's good enough for me.
There you go.
So,
and hey, while we're here, I want to give a shout out. I've been informed by well-placed sources that the guys at Allegheny Fence Company in Hazelwood have been turning off the radio at work and just listening to the Steelers Afternoon Drive instead. So huge shout out to those guys. Really appreciate you listening. And if you listen to the Afternoon Drive at your place of work, let us know, and we'll similarly shout you out. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Hazel, we got a nice presence in Hazelwood. Friend of the show, Eddie P, out in Hazelwood as well. That's where he's from. Well, he lives in Monroeville now, but Hazelwood born and raised. So I think we got a nice presence going on in Hazelwood.
Good people.
Anyways, we're about 3 minutes into the show and haven't said a damn thing about the Steelers, really, other than the fact that they're good and people are appropriately rating them. But anyways, it is Ravens week. So I feel like we got to really start diving into the Steelers-Ravens week, because not only is the conversation around them heating up, I feel like the rivalry is starting to heat up in terms of the players from both sides talking about it. DeShon Elliott appearing on Marlon Humphrey's podcast, Patrick Queen answering questions about being on the other side of this, even Jeremiah Moon now having been on both sides of this. Some conversation today, Patrick Queen speaking, as I just said right there. Alan, what were your favorite parts or the best things that you took away from what Patrick Queen had to say?
My favorite thing about today was Patrick Queen, very heartfelt, very raw emotionally, maybe some tears in his eyes, talking about not getting an opportunity to keep playing with the Baltimore Ravens after he finished his rookie contract there. They didn't offer him a deal, how like raw and upset he was, the raw emotions of it. And then like that coming like 20 minutes after DeShon Elliott is on Marlon Humphrey's podcast, just clowning him about how bad the Ravens pass defense is. And
Dolphins getting a ricochet shot.
Yeah. I really appreciate both of these guys and everything they bring to the table, and that they're both in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And let's just say they're very different approach to talking about the rivalry.
I mean, imagine like you're a Dolphins fan and you're just like happen to come across that clip. Like, what in the world did we do?
The Dolphins catching serious strays, and they don't need any more negative headlines. Don't kick a fan base when they're down there, DeShon. That was uncool, but yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I feel
unadulterated trash talk from DeShon Elliott and pure heartfelt emotion from Patrick Queen, and we both get to the same place at the same time. Those guys are the bad guys if you're a purple and black fan
Yeah.
this Sunday, and both seem very happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. This rivalry needs villains on both sides, and they will be happy to play that part for Ravens fans. But I'll be honest. For me, I feel like I would fall more into the Patrick Queen approach of taking things, but I love the DeShon Elliott one a whole heck of a lot more as a bystander.
Yeah, yeah. Patrick Queen, comes off the podium, and I gave him a little fist bump. I said, "Thanks, P. I appreciate that." That was tough. Like I could tell it was tough for him to talk about it, and then DeShaun is laughing and cutting up, and I'm like, I don't even know what you said yet. All I know is that since I've been in this locker room, I've gotten 7 texts about it.
Okay. So
and he goes, I was just speaking my mind, man. I don't know why they're all freaking out.
So did he speak to you guys today or
just that interaction? He did not have like a formal media availability.
Interesting. Okay. Why? Highly recommend anybody that wants to check that out to go check that out. Not that I want to give, Marlon Humphrey's podcast a bunch of views, but I think for this one time,
we can make an exception for this week.
We're willing to make an exception. And yeah, I love the Patrick Queen stuff. That, I feel like as fans, sometimes we just we take that stuff for granted, the behind the scenes stuff. It's just like everybody probably looks at the situation. It's like, who cares whether it was in Baltimore or Pittsburgh? He got paid a nice chunk of money to play football. But that's taken the human element out of this. Like he was drafted there at such a young age, the way that he was talked about at the beginning of his career and then vastly improved within a season or two to become the player that he was. And then just the relationships that you build within there. And you think when you go somewhere for out of the draft, a lot of guys come in thinking like this is potentially where I'm going to spend my entire NFL career. Ideally, like when you like a place that much, I'm sure he didn't want to leave. So yeah, that's got to be a tough situation and one that I don't think fans think about a whole heck of a lot until it happens and you hear a player talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's tough when he didn't even get a chance. Like they were just like, no, we can't afford you. Like don't worry about it. I think if a player has an option to say like, hey, I think of a guy like Javon Hargrave when he left Pittsburgh, right? The Steelers were like, look, we'd love to have you, but it just doesn't we couldn't give an offer. I don't know. It doesn't seem like Queen got those vibes from Baltimore. It seemed like he left that interaction feeling unwanted, feeling like they didn't want him there. It wasn't just about the cap space that they didn't even offer him any contract. And, I wrote that every villain has an origin story. Today, I feel like we got Patrick Queen's villain origin story, right? This is I don't know. I'm bad at comic books, but this is like the Joker, right? Like this is how how Patrick Queen becomes that guy, and we'll see how the story gets written from here. But it was interesting, that's for sure.
DeShon Elliott's nickname is literally the Joker. So, I don't know. We might have to find a different one for PQ. And when you think of DeShon Elliott's, thing with him appearing on that podcast, everything we took away. I mean, literally, if you're going to make an analogy of a movie scene, it's the Joker walking away from the hospital as it's blowing up. Like that is what happened with DeShon Elliott today on that podcast, or I guess I should say last night with that podcast appearance. All right, but good stuff there. We're obviously continue to dive into this matchup. But obviously,
I just want to talk about the rivalry itself a little bit, and I want to get your perspective on what you think about the Ravens rivalry. I was talking to Dean Lowry, and just sort of talking to him about the rivalry. And obviously, he played in Green Bay, and he said for Green Bay it was like Chicago. It was like that was the rivalry that everybody got real mad about and real up in arms. And even though the Vikings were a better team, and I'm interested, what's your perspective? What makes the Steelers Ravens rivalry what it is? Why did it become the thing? Is it just because the teams are good? Is it because of how similarly minded they are? I don't know. What? Yeah. I don't know. They're that you can have good teams in the same division and they don't grow a rivalry the way the Steelers and the Ravens have. And I don't really have a good answer really as to why. I have some thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Well, you said it with the parallels in terms of just, I think the organizations are just so alike in terms of the way they operate and how consistent they are with their approach. And also, I think two franchises that have largely operated with wanting to build their franchises through the draft. Like, I think top to bottom, just the way that you look at them, their approach is very similar. So, I mean, that is for me, at least the way that I've always looked at it. And it just goes back to, again, like I obviously both being good a lot of the times also paralleling with each other is going to play into it as well. You know, how many times a season did they end up playing each other 3 times instead of the 2 times that they always would? It seems like they were always meeting for a while there in the playoffs too. You know, I think of Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, Big Ben, Troy. Like, those are the players I think about immediately when I think of this rivalry. So James Harrison, obviously. But yeah, I think for me, it's more so just the parallels with the way that they operate, even more so than both of them just being, you know, the 2 teams that always seem to be at the top.
Yeah, because even when Cincinnati is good, and Cincinnati
Yeah.
has been good, it's not the same. And it's not the
Mm-mm.
same with the Browns either, even though that rivalry is longer and older and has, I think, probably more pure hatred in it.
Yeah.
It's not the same because the Browns, since they've come back, have almost never been competitive with the Steelers.
I always say this, and I'm not, this is just me personally as one fan within a fan base. I hate the Ravens while we're playing them, but there's a level of respect there afterwards. I just cannot stand the other 2 teams regardless. Like, there's a level of respect there from me for the Ravens organization that I do not have for the Bengals and the Browns.
I think the Ravens organization is sort of almost intentionally, in many ways, like mimic the Steelers. Like, they're very similar, or like they run themselves very similarly to the way the Steelers run themselves and always have. And I think that was pretty intentional. Like, the Steelers were the sort of standard bearers for what to do when the Ravens were getting going. And I think the continuity between the coaches is a big thing too. I
Yeah.
mean, basically, you've had, since the Ravens got there, I mean, with some like very minimal exceptions, Billick and Harbaugh, Cowher and Tomlin. Like that was the whole thing. And so I think that continuity helps 2 GMs for each team as well. I think since then, maybe 3 for Pittsburgh, but like only very briefly. And so I think that continuity really helps breed the sort of the sameness. Like, it is the same, but I'm with you on the Bengals. I generally think this version of the Bengals is a little bit more likable than they have been in the past. Like, I think
I like
Joe Burrow's a pretty likable guy. I don't
Mhm.
think too many people like, oh my god, I hate that guy. You know,
Yeah, I like
Jamar Chase
individual
too, like
players for
very
sure.
very entertaining, exciting player.
Yeah. And I got that stacked in 2 fantasy leagues. So yeah, I got nothing against what Burrow and Chase got going on over there. So it's 100% just like big picture, the organization and fan base for me than anything else, where I don't view the Ravens in that same light like I do with the Bengals and the Browns.
Yeah.
Browns probably even further away, to be honest with you, than the Bengals. Like, I guess some friends that are Browns fans, I like them, but everybody else, we'll see you.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, it was just the Browns. Obviously, the Ravens didn't exist, and the Oilers were a big rival as well. Uh,
Yeah.
but for me, it was always the Browns growing up, and then I don't know, the Browns stopped being a team worth fearing. I think is really the. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think that rivalry would be the bigger of the two if the Browns ever got consistently good again?
I don't think it could now. Like, maybe if it never stopped, then sure.
So,
I
like,
but
let's say, like, this year the Browns draft Jalen Milroe, he turns into a star, and all of a sudden they're right back in the mix in the division every year, you know, 10 and 6, 11, 10, 7, 11 and 6, something like that every season for like a long stretch. Do you don't think it would ever be equal to what the Steelers Ravens is?
maybe like over a long period. It's just hard for me to foresee right now. And by the way, please Browns draft Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, they
Just
absolutely should.
but but I don't know. Like, it's just hard for me to picture anything other than Steelers Ravens being the cock of the walk.
I think it's the best rivalry in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said the AFC North, but yeah, I mean, to me, like, even bias included, bias aside, I think it's the best in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, I'm excited to see how the next chapter gets written, and we got to talk about, are these guys going to be able to be a part of the next chapter that is written? We expected, I think, Najee Harris to be limited early in the week, or not practice early in the week with the ankle injury, and we'll monitor that throughout the week. But Van Jefferson was the one to me that I didn't necessarily expect to see popped up with a quad injury on the injury report. Anything that can be said about that, or how you feel this early in the week about it?
Yeah, kind of out of the clear blue sky for me too. I'll be honest, I've filmed video of the receivers. It's up there on the YouTube channel too. I didn't even notice he wasn't in there.
Oh wow.
So my bad on that one. But I was looking for Calvin Austin. I was looking for Jamal Agnew. I wasn't paying attention to Van Jefferson. I don't know. Mike Tomlin didn't say anything about it on Tuesday, so I'm gonna assume it's minor. Michael Pruitt just seems like this knee is going to be a thing where they're going to give him a day every once in a while the rest of the way. Najee was getting rested on Wednesdays pretty regularly anyway. So unless he misses tomorrow's practice, I wouldn't really be concerned about him. Donte Jackson said he had an MRI and he's good to go. But he's got to practice. So we'll see. But hamstrings always come with the eternal caveat of, see how you feel tomorrow, but it seems like Donte Jackson's going to be okay. Alex Highsmith, the one guy who we should not expect to play this week.
Right, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you about somebody else. I thought that I had seen you put out it was such a busy day at work, but I thought I saw you put out a post regarding Corey Trice's availability, hopefully within the next week or two.
Yeah, I talked to Corey this morning before practice. He said he's pushing for this week, if not this week, next week.
Okay. All right. Which we had gotten a question about him and didn't have a ton of info. So there you go. Corey Trice himself pushing to play this week. We'll see if that can come to the forefront.
Did not
anything else on the injury stuff?
Calvin Austin's fine. He was checked for a concussion in the game. That's why he came out, but he was cleared and is fine.
Was that put out there what it was? Because I don't remember seeing that it was okay.
No.
All right.
He was in the blue tent getting checked for a concussion when Mike Williams scored his touchdown. So his view of the touchdown was just hearing the reaction from the crowd and the rest of the sideline that the Steelers had taken the lead as he's in there getting checked out by the neurologist and has to sit still and go through all that. Poor Calvin Austin.
Yeah, I want to hear. Did he tell that story? I'm curious to hear what his POV then of it was in his own words.
He said it was just that he heard the crowd and he knew it was a touchdown. Then he could hear the guys on the sideline all running because the tent was at that far end of the Steelers sideline. So he could hear the guys all running and whooping on their way down to that end zone as they were going to celebrate with Mike Williams. But he's stuck in the tent watching the whole time.
Yeah, sitting on his hands, can't move. That's gotta be tough. All right, let's get into some questions.
Especially because he turned out to be fine. I mean, if you're in there and you're actually injured, you're probably more concerned about that. But
let's get into some questions. We gave a shout at the beginning of the show. Let's do some shout outs to people that's got some questions for us. Stephen 116th. Okay.
Yeah.
Stephen,
regular commenter. Stephen is.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to the it's not just the number
one of his in the past as well.
Okay. Well, Stephen, I still have a question about why it's not just the number 116 and why we got the TH on the end. But anyways, Stephen, we appreciate that. Do you think that there's a chance that we see an extra defensive lineman body, such as a Braden Voko with no Highsmith this week in the style that the Ravens play? Obviously, Alan, going back to last year, when Voko was on the roster, we said this should be a matchup where he gets elevated, gets a helmet, just kind of makes sense in terms of what the Ravens want to do and the type of defense the Steelers want to play against them, the point of attack. Now Derrick Henry's in the mix, obviously, and what's your thought in terms of that? Can they get does the helmet math work out potentially for that?
I'll make a prediction about Steven first. 116th, I'm going to guess that's the 116th Infantry Regiment, which is the Virginia National Guard. Okay. Make me look smart, Steven. Let me know if I got that one right. About Braden Voko, I would dress him, but I would have dressed him 13 times over the last 2 seasons, and the Steelers have dressed him but once. But that one time they did dress him was against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, he didn't play, but he did dress. Yeah, dude, Patrick Ricard is there's a Freightliner in the backfield. I want a nose tackle in the game at all times. And there is not a backup nose tackle to Keanu Benton on the 53-man roster. Heck yeah, I'm playing Braden Voko in this game. Does the helmet math work? I mean, it's tough. It's tough, but I think it's possible. I'll say that. But it is. I'll admit that it is not an easy solution, but I do think it is possible.
Like, where do you get it? Because we talked about, like, you want Jeremiah Moon, you want that fourth edge rusher as well. It can't be from there. Not just because of special teams, but just because of the reps that you're losing with Highsmith, and they can't all be to Herbig and Smith. I don't know. I mean, at least on the surface, I'm not seeing it right now. But also, I want to say I clicked on this guy's profile. It is a lightning bolt in the background of an Air Force building. So,
all right. Well, maybe. See, I'm not familiar with the Air Force. I don't know. There's like 116th something wing, air wing, fighter wing. The 116th Air Control Wing is a Georgia Air National Guard. There you go. Could be that as well.
Okay. Either way, if that's the case, shout out. Thank you.
You could sit. See, the thing is that all the players you could sit are also players that I would want for the game. Like you could probably go without Mark Robinson, but I mean, he's been playing so much special teams. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very tough. But I would try to find a way if possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you need Skoranek as a gunner. Yeah.
It's hard.
I don't know.
It's really hard to find a place to play him.
I want to come back to this at the end of the week. I'm going to have a reminder just to see, I'm going to try to go through the roster and see if there's maybe a spot where it makes sense.
Maybe if Donte Jackson doesn't play, because I feel like they have an extra corner. They dressed Sutton and they didn't scratch anyone.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, maybe if Donte Jackson doesn't play, they could get him in there.
But we don't expect it to happen. But if it does, there you go. There's, I guess, one path to that happening. Dennis says, compare the Ravens defense to others that the Steelers have played this season and what challenges they present that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, the Ravens defense is not the Ravens defense of old, my friends. This defense, especially against the pass, stinks. And it's interesting because they have good players. I don't really know what to make of. To me, the Ravens defense is the Jets offense. I remember we talked about the Jets offense, and you're like, all these players are good, but they stink. That's like Matabike, really good. Van Noy, still pretty good. Trenton Simpson, I love him. Roquan Smith, very good. Owe, very good. Marlon Humphrey, very good.
Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton,
one of the best. There's not a lot to not like about that defense on paper, but the results on the field, especially through the air, I will say the secondary is clearly the weak link here. Humphrey getting a little bit older. I don't think much of the combination of Ardarius Washington, Marcus Williams, and Brandon Stevens in 4 of those other 5 spots, with Hamilton, being the Hamilton and Humphrey are good. The other 3 guys, they're okay. Nate Wiggins was a first-round pick, hasn't been able to get into there. Not quite sure why that's not been a thing. They just traded for Tre'Davious White. I don't know if he's going to play or how much he's going to play. Obviously, they had played Thursday, so he had literally just gotten there. So I don't know. I think that's the way I would describe this Ravens defense. They're good against the run, but also that comes with the caveat that they've also been ahead a whole bunch.
Yeah, right.
And so teams just aren't running against them as much as it is that they can't run against them.
And when you're that bad against the pass, why even test?
Why bother? Right. It's so much more effective to throw the ball against them.
Yeah. It's just weird because with the Jets offense, you can at least see what the what the weak link is there with the offensive line. Like that is what has really set the whole thing back for me, or what I thought was going to be the whole thing to set them back. Now, obviously, Aaron hasn't played to a great level, and I think there's some other things that are obviously going on there. But like with Baltimore's defense, like you said, although there's not like great players on the back end, they're not like that different. Like a year ago, Brandon Stevens, Baltimore fans were talking him up, saying how good he was as a CB2. Like Marcus Williams, one of the highest paid safeties when they signed him to that deal. Like it's just weird to find where that disconnect is right now on the back end, why they are this bad. Like if you told me they were a league average defense and I look at those players on the back end, then like, okay, pass defense, I should say. But like to be literally dead last with that unit in terms of that to me is pretty wild.
I don't think their front 4 or 5, they play 3-4, so it's really 5, but are like as good as they've been. Like I think Owe and Van Noy are pretty good. David Ojabo's got like some interesting stuff coming off the bench there, and like Madubuike is really good, but I don't think much of the rest of their interior guys. It just doesn't seem like they're getting a lot of pass rush from that group. And people are talking about Roquan Smith in Baltimore the same way people were talking about Patrick Queen in Pittsburgh, that like he's not playing that well. Like this is a guy we had higher expectations for. Sometimes 1 + 1 = 3. You know, like sometimes you split up the pairing and neither of them work out that well. Although I think Patrick Queen is I think we just saw his best game against Washington, and I would bet money that we're going to see a better one this week.
Yeah, he's steadily been going in the right direction, I would say. Like, how many times have we now said, like, oh, like this was his best game? It's like 3 games out of the last 4. We've said this was Patrick Queen's best game as a Steeler. So that's obviously a sign things have been going progressively in the right direction. And game against the Commanders was awesome and obviously super hyped up to play in this one. Eric said, do you think seeing Daniels play against the Steelers would give the Ravens some insight in terms of how to not attack this defense?
No, because the Steelers just did to Daniels what they always do to Lamar. Like they just played the Lamar Jackson defense against Washington. Now, I do think, you know, it's not all the same Steelers players. They got some different wrinkles with the way they're deploying DeShon Elliott, for example. You know, the way they're lining up Minkah Fitzpatrick this year is a little bit different. So maybe a little bit, but like, I don't know. I don't think a lot. I don't think what the Steelers do to Lamar has been a secret. I just think they do it. That what they're doing is risky. There's a reason other teams don't do it, and they're really good at pulling it off.
Yeah, I mean, I get so the other part of it, what he said here was like how not to attack, I guess. Like also from a personnel standpoint, the Ravens have Derrick Henry, the Commanders don't have Derrick Henry. Like
yeah,
I understand
Derrick Henry this morning, but again, I don't know how Derrick Henry is going to change how the Steelers will use their defense, but I don't think that, and in fact, Mike Tomlin admitted that he doesn't know. But I don't think that, like, I guess the initial premise that I don't think there's some big advantage to the Ravens just seeing it last week, because the Ravens have seen it 4 or 5 times now. Like, it's not like it's the Steelers really did the whole like defense just for Lamar Jackson for the first time in like 2020. Like it's not new at this point. And they've done it to other teams before too. Like they have a pretty good idea what's coming. And of course the Steelers are going to change some things up too, just for the sake of changing some things up. They're probably going to do some stuff. I may have already seen some stuff that I can't talk about that we have not seen so far this year. Like they're gonna come up with some different stuff because it's a divisional team and they know you really well, and that's when you gotta coach the best. So yeah, I think you'll see some stuff that you haven't seen yet to this point that the Steelers have been holding on to.
I think so too. I think that one of the big complaints that people were throwing my way in terms of the Steelers defense is just like how vanilla it's been. Like it's been effective, sure, but they haven't been put into situations where they have to really throw a bunch of different things, reinvent the wheel. Like they've just been effective sticking to what they do. I thought against Washington, maybe they threw a little bit of some wrinkles that they hadn't had yet. Of course, having Cam Sutton back in the mix would give them the ability to do some different stuff. But I think even more so, like tenfold now, as we get into division play, they didn't want to put it on tape before this game. I think that was a big thing for them. So I think that this is now a week where you will see some different looks that we haven't seen. And those people that were complaining about that, stay tuned.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the way the Steelers are playing defense. I don't. It doesn't bother me at all. I think they're playing good defense. They're second in scoring. Why are we complaining about the defense?
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong. I'm not somebody that is. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate to that. I think people that I've talked to and have had, or I've seen the conversations on Twitter, are saying that it's so vanilla. Sure, it's working now, but what about when they play tougher, like a tougher level of competition? Like Baltimore, Philly, Kansas City, those teams that we have on the back, Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there are going to be teams that score more points against them, but I would feel very good about having the Steelers defense right now.
Yeah, I do too.
Just because they aren't doing more doesn't mean they can't if they have to.
Yeah. Right. Well, that has been my response is once they're put into a position where I feel like they have, like somebody forces them to do so, to mix things up and they have to throw some different looks at, if they still don't, if they're not able to adapt at that point, then we can have this conversation. But you're bringing up a hypothetical that I feel like isn't worth having otherwise. So
yeah, I agree.
All right, Alan. Till tomorrow. Tell the people they can find you.
That's it, man. 30 minutes goes by so fast sometimes. At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Please go there, read the words so I can get paid. Use promo code Allen10 to sign up for an annual subscription. Get all the best stuff from me. DB's working on something right now for tomorrow morning. I got something I've been working on that might go Friday morning that is just going to be for SN Plus subscribers. But in addition to that, you get no ads and the whole stinking rest of the site, which is way worth it. Trust me, way worth it. And also subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. You got Patrick Queen video up there. You got Agnew and Austin at practice. You got Morning Rush up there where I talked about Derrick Henry. You'll have another one of those in 12 hours because we just keep it rolling. And we got a new thing coming this Saturday. New thing coming. I don't know when I'm going to announce it. I'm just going to keep teasing.
Stay on the lookout. It's probably Saturday.
Slightly larger increments.
Just drop it, and then it's just this is what it was.
There you go.
I feel like there's got to be an official announcement at least one day in advance to give people time to make sure they do hit that notification bell to know when it's going to come out. But if you do so, you'll know exactly when it drops. So do that for sure. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about today. A question for a future episode. As you can see, we get to those from time to time on these episodes. So we appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the questions. And like Alan said at the beginning of the show, if you are in a workplace environment where you are now tuning into Steelers Afternoon Drive instead of a local radio station, be sure to let us know because we want to give you a shout out on the pod for doing so. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. You can just search Steelers Afternoon Drive and you will find us. Same thing to do on TikTok. Find us over there, Steelers Afternoon Drive. And then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. And unfortunately, you could also find me at tonight's Pittsburgh Penguins game. Kind of feels like more of a chore than anything else to be going right now, but I will be there in attendance tonight. Other than that, for Alan Saunders, Zachary Smith, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.